Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to AL.com SEC Insider. My name is Patrick Greenfield, filling in for Lauren Sisler today, and we have some big news on the Auburn front. Quarterback Bo Nix is transferring. He announced on Instagram last night, and I am bringing in our wonderful Auburn beat writer to discuss the situation with us. Hello, Tom. How you doing?
Doing pretty good, man.
Awesome. Well, you know what? We could just get right into it. Bo Nix announces on Instagram that he is transferring. The 3-year starting quarterback for the Tigers is leaving. Can you just kind of fill us in, let people know ground level what's happening right now?
Yeah, I mean, there had been, kind of rumors circulating, I guess really since he, injured his ankle late in the season that, he might transfer elsewhere. He obviously did nothing to calm those rumors on a couple radio appearances over the last couple weeks. So there's a lot of speculation about what Bo Nix was going to do for his senior year. He graduated, he got his degree in 3 years this past week, and then announced Sunday that, he's going to go be a grad transfer somewhere else. So, it ends a, 3-year era at Auburn where, he started 34 consecutive games starting from day one. It was, there were a lot of ups and downs. He had some incredible highs, some oftentimes maddening lows. But, this was a guy who was the centerpiece of Auburn's offense for the last 3 years, and now he's moving on.
Yeah, I'm going to throw up his career year or his career numbers right now. Seemingly for the Auburn Tigers, obviously the last few years have been a little bit rocky, but they seem to have a lot of, I would like to say, positive momentum. You could see in the Penn State game, in the Iron Bowl. Is there a reason beyond football that you think Bo Nix is transferring out?
Well, I think one of the things is, I'm sure that he was heading into the season thinking that he was going to have a big year and was going to be able to parlay that into, declaring for the NFL draft year early, degree in hand, all that. Obviously, the broken ankle kind of, threw things, into a little bit of a mess there for him and, probably impacted his decision. You look at, just kind of the makeup of what this team is going to be next year. They're losing a lot of seniors. They have some guys that, can obviously come back and take advantage of that free year of eligibility. But from a quarterback perspective, for a guy who, has a lot to prove with 1 year remaining, I think he might just want a little bit more certainty. Especially you look at Auburn's offense, that offensive line, which, has had its struggles in each of his years. Is losing a lot of pieces, a lot of seniors on that offensive line. It's a lot of question marks. I don't think, he wants to come back and, for one last season and play behind a big question mark on the offensive line. Some unproven receivers, had some guys step up, late in the season, some of these younger guys. But, I think it's as much about the uncertainty at the pieces around him and wanting to set himself up for, the best possible, final season. I think he kind of alluded to as much in his, video last night, saying, he's made a lot of decisions for Auburn. Now it's time to make one for himself.
I was going to say, being the legacy quarterback with Patrick Nix, it's very famous. He was obviously at the BCS championship game as a little kid. There's a lot of pressure, and maybe this is a time for Bo Nix, recovering from injury, getting, he's had 3 different offensive coordinators. Maybe this is a time for him just to write his own legacy. And that's not a bad thing for anybody. I think people will want to know real fast. It's obviously not going to matter in the end to Auburn fans, but do you have any possible destinations? These are some things that I'd heard. UCF is obviously one that Auburn fans would be somewhat interested, but anything to say on that?
Yeah, I haven't heard anything particular. I know, some people have thrown out, Cincinnati and UCF as some possible destinations. Does he want to reunite with Gus Malzahn for one season? Obviously, they have an uncertain quarterback situation themselves with Dylan Gabriel entering the transfer portal. There's some talk of Kenny Dillingham maybe being the offense coordinator at Oregon. I know he worked with Bo Nix his freshman season when he won SEC Freshman of the Year. My understanding is Dillingham still thinks very highly of Nix, and that's, part of the appeal of, why he, spoke to Auburn about its offensive coordinator opening in the last couple of weeks too. So if he ends up at Oregon, that might be an interesting destination. But, I think it's just going to be one of those things we're going to wait and see where he winds up because, there's a lot of quarterbacks in the transfer portal right now, a lot of good names, and it's just going to be really interesting to see kind of how everything shakes out over these next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and it should be noted for all the audience that Bo Nix is a graduate transfer. All right, he's not just entering the portal just because. And two recent, SEC West transfers that kind of come to mind are Jalen Hurts, obviously, and Joe Burrow. Those are guys that got their degrees and then left.
Mhm.
Obviously, if you're going to transfer, you are going to be a QB1 at the next place. You're not going to go wait or anything. So it will be interesting to see where he kind of ends up based on what he's looking for out of his life. I am curious, and I think a lot of Auburn fans will be, was Brian Harsin a factor, or what is this Auburn rebuild? The status of the Auburn rebuild, and where did that come into Bo Nix's decision?
I mean, I don't know how much of a factor Brian Harsin was. I'm sure, Bo Nix sat down with him and, kind of, discussed his mindset and, what he wanted to get out of his senior season and some things he may or may not have wanted to achieve or see with this offense moving forward. I'm sure they've had discussions about what Bo was going to do, especially after, his ankle injury. But, Brian Harsin, he's trying to build a program here. And now obviously, he inherited a lot of key pieces this first year. But now next year, we're going to see, what that rebuild kind of looks for him, because it's going to be a bigger rebuild than, it seemingly was this season, because there's a lot of questions on this team. And now you have a question at the biggest position and the most important position on offense.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, you do have TJ Finley, somebody who got some major playing time and some major position upgrade when he became QB1, especially for the Iron Bowl. Kind of going into your article that you wrote today, everybody go check that out on AL.com. What is next for Auburn at quarterback? We have TJ Finley, we have Demetrius Davis, and we have a 4-star Holden Garner 2022 quarterback coming in, signing tomorrow or on Wednesday in his gym. How do you see the Auburn quarterback situation playing out for this next offseason?
Yeah, really, there's four possibilities here. You named three of them. The fourth is obviously if Auburn decides that it needs to hit the transfer portal and pluck one of these names. There's a lot of big names in there. A lot of starting quarterbacks with a lot of experience are in there right now. But just looking at the guys that they have coming back, they're currently set to have 3 quarterbacks on scholarship next year. That's kind of the position they were in this point last year too. With Bo Nix, Grant Loy, and Demetrius Davis. And then obviously they felt that they needed to go into the portal to get some more depth, so they brought in TJ Finley. TJ Finley was a guy, in talking to him and his parents, this fall, he came to compete with Bo Nix this year, but the goal was always, it was about next year. It was about 2022, because they felt that, Nix was going to try to go to the NFL after this season. So, he's always been preparing for 2022 to be his year. And I think at this point, he will enter 2022 in the spring as, the presumptive starter at quarterback. He's a guy that's got now 7 games of starting experience at the SEC level, 5 last year at LSU, the last 2 games at Auburn. His numbers haven't been eye-popping at either. But he's a guy that's got a lot of upside, obviously 6'7", 240 something pounds, and just a rocket for an arm. So he's got a high ceiling, but he's still a work in progress. He's only 19 years old, even though he's a sophomore, and he's got all this experience. So, this is a chance for Brian Harsin and, whoever the offensive coordinator that he brings in and to work with quarterbacks can really, develop a guy on their own. I think, Finley has shown he's a good leader. He's a tough player. He showed that when he tried to play through that sprained ankle in the Iron Bowl, which obviously affected his ability to, be a little bit more mobile and even plant off that right foot. But he's a guy that he's going to enter this offseason as, the favorite for that job for the time being. Then behind him, you have Demetrius Davis, 4-star guy, dual threat. So he's a little bit outside of the mold of what, Brian Harsin usually does with his quarterback, or the type of quarterbacks he usually likes. But he's a guy who's received a lot of praise from his teammates. And, Harsin, kind of lauded him for his gamesmanship in the fall, especially during scrimmages and practices. So he brings a little something different to the table. He has not seen the field this year. He's going to redshirt. Whether we see him in the Birmingham Bowl now remains to be seen. Yeah. I think it would obviously benefit him and the team if, they can get him some live reps against, some quality competition like Houston, a top 20 team.
Yeah.
But, you're talking about a guy who's a proven winner. He won back-to-back state titles at the highest level of football in Texas. Led his
It's
team.
48-2.
Yeah,
We're talking about
48.
Demetrius Davis here.
Yeah, 48-2 or something like that as a starter. Yeah. Back-to-back state titles as a sophomore and junior, and then made it to the state semifinals as a senior. The guy can play. It's just a matter of whether he's a fit for what Auburn wants to do offensively moving forward, which is, another question entirely with them still looking to replace an offense coordinator. You mentioned Holden Geriner, 4-star prospect, just won a state title at Georgia, had a really impressive senior season, completed close to 70% of his passes. I think, over 300 or 3,000 yards, 36 touchdowns, something in that range. So really impressive prospect that they're really high on. He was the first guy first high school player to commit to this program after Brian Harsin took over, joining them back in February. And then he'll put pen to paper this week and he'll be on campus in January. So he'll have an opportunity to go through spring, kind of like Bo Nix did when he was a true freshman and was able to earn that starting job when they had an open competition. Obviously, those are the three options that they have coming back. And then, it remains to be seen whether they want to hit the portal and try to get more depth there. And, there's someone that they feel really strongly about. But again, I think a lot of what that quarterback situation is going to look like next year is going to be dependent on who Brian Harsin hires as his offensive coordinator and what they want to do with that offense.
Is there any timeline for that? Obviously, that's kind of some internal things. Brian Harsin has some due diligence. One would add. I would put out it. It seems like if everything was sunny cupcakes, sunshine, and roses, Bo Nix might not be in that transfer portal. He might heal up. He might just be QB1 next year on, like I said, a promising team. I know that they've had a lot of problems on the offensive line and out wide receiver. Is there anything to read into that part about what's happening at Auburn that kind of I know you kind of touched on it a little bit, but if you see where I'm kind of going with that, if everything was flipped, Bo Nix would just stay, correct?
Yeah, I think, the uncertainty has something to do with it. I mean, he doesn't know who the offense coordinator would be. It would be his fourth offensive coordinator in his college career, playing for two different head coaches. And, obviously, questions at the positions around him. So I think if there was a little bit more stability, we'd be talking about a different story here with Bo Nix. Yeah. But, the reality is, they're looking for another offensive coordinator. They fired a guy, less than 1 year into a 3-year deal. They're paying him, $2.6 million or whatever to go away for the next 2 years. And, Brian Harsin is doing his due diligence and, hiring a replacement. I wouldn't be surprised if we got some news this week, either, just before signing day or just after it. But yeah, no, he's obviously taking his time and trying to find the right fit for what he wants to do offensively with this team.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting if Harsin's plan really comes together. There was a good transition with Holden, and we'll wrap up with this. Early signing day is on Wednesday, December 15th. We'll have a lot of content. And I think that Auburn is probably good on the quarterback room, but like we're talking about stability, do you think this Nix news and possibly some other news that's kind of floating out there, rumors, will impact recruits come Wednesday? Auburn has only 13 hard recruits the last time I looked.
Yeah, obviously the recruiting hasn't been, out of this world to this point, but, speaking to people, around this program, they feel very confident that they're going to close pretty strong. They're in the mix for a lot of, highly touted recruits. I think we might get some news here this afternoon. 4-star cornerback Austin Osbury is, making his announcement, and, it seems Auburn might be the favorite there. So that might get a little bit of momentum going after, you get a little, setback with some news with Nix and stuff like that. But, they feel pretty good that they're going to close pretty strong, and, they're going to need to, whether that's, with high school signees, with JUCO guys, adding some pieces through the portal. I mean, they're, Brian Harsin wants to build a program, and this is his chance. This is his first full cycle. This is going to be, the chance for him to really, make an impact on what the personnel of this team looks like.
Yeah, and another part about that's why he wanted to come to what is still an elite program in the nation, Auburn. Rather being at Boise, having to go down to California, reach out to Texas, Auburn is in some of the most fertile ground recruiting-wise in the nation.
Yeah, and obviously Auburn has its traditional footprint, but, man, Brian Harsin and his staff, they've been out there burning jet fuel the last couple of weeks. They're recruits and trying to close strong. So we'll see if it pays off come Wednesday.
Cool. Well, Auburn will be playing host to Houston in the Birmingham Bowl. That's at 11 a.m. on Tuesday down at Protective Stadium. I'd like to see the thing full. I'll be down there. I think Auburn fans can pack it out. You will be there as well.
Yes, I will be there.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, thank you guys for joining us. We want to thank our sponsor, Keep Alabama Beautiful. For more on Bo Nix, the Auburn Tigers, Brian Harsin, be sure to check out AL.com. Check out Tom Green, Tobias Wilson. Got a lot of content for you. Thank you, Tom. Really appreciate it today.
Yeah, no problem.